This is The Boys podcast from TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about The Boys Season 2, Episode 7, Butcher, Baker, Candlestick Maker.
I feel so stupid. I gave my whole life to nothing.
That's not true.
Mom, the good guys don't win. The bad guys don't get punished. What we do means nothing. It's just all for money, and I am in the middle of all of it. Alone.
Honey, you're not alone. You're not. Let's go away. You and me. Let's get away from all of this, get away from thought, escape for a while. Mm-hmm. I cleared it already.
You cleared what?
With Ashley at Bot.
You called them?
Yeah, about an hour ago. Why?
Mom, they could be looking for
Welcome back, boys and girls, to our discussion about The Boys Season 2, Episode 7, Butcher, Baker, Candlestick Maker, the mind-blowing episode of The Boys. I'm one of your hosts, Darick.
Hello there, fellow boys and girls. I'm one of your other hosts, John.
And rounding out this trio of explosive, mind-blowing podcasters, I'm Chris.
There you go. I wanted to get in there with the mind-blowing jive before anybody else did. I think everybody's...
Well, to be fair, anything we opened with now would have been more upbeat than the opening we got of this episode.
That's very true.
That is very true.
Yeah, this is going to be our spoiler-filled discussion. We will be talking about everything to do with Episode 7 of The Boys. Make sure you watch the episode, as we always forget to say before we spoil stuff. But go watch it, see what happens, come back and join us for our discussion. But yeah, this is a big one. There we are on the penultimate episode of the series, second season of The Boys. There has been a third season confirmed, so there is more Boys coming. But yeah, this is a significant episode, really.
Yeah, just before we hit record, I was actually just saying, I was convinced this was episode 6 in my head. I'm like, oh, it's fine. We've got 2 hours left. They can tie up a few things in another 2 hours. And it wasn't until we started recording, I went, what's the episode number? Oh no.
Oh
no.
I know, it has whizzed by.
It has, absolutely. Speaking of episode 6, though, we have, to kick off our podcast, a little correction on our discussion from last week's episode. One of our listeners, Chris Aggie, sent a message to us on Facebook to say a small correction on episode 6. The dagger Stormfront has in the chest is not an SS dagger. It's a Hitler Youth League of German Girls dagger or knife. SS daggers have another form. There is no red in the symbol. The red and white insignia in the handle is actually the Hitler Jugend or Bund Deutscher Mädel symbol. Makes sense in my view, because if Stormfront was born in 1919, she would have been the age of this group, the Hitler Youth, in 1930, kind of 11 years old, when Nazis took over Germany in the early 30s. Thanks so much for that, Chris. That's a really good catch. I know when the guys were talking about the knife or dagger that was in Stormfront's chest last week, I was sitting there kind of going, I don't even remember that. I was kind of focused on the photograph that was in the chest.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chris. I think for me, it was just the certainty that it was some kind of Nazi dagger there for sure.
Yeah, Chris, thank you so much. Anyone, if you ever have any corrections, please feel free to send them in, because it's great. The more you know, as G.I. Joe used to say. But no, on a serious note, when we saw this feedback, I went, so where did I see it? Where did the SS bit come? Jojo Rabbit, which I had watched only recently. I say recently, time is a straight line and a curve and wibbly wobbly now in COVID times. It was about 6 months ago I watched it, but it was interesting to see that, it was in there as well. But yes, thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah. Good stuff. Some good news, guys, before we get into the episode discussion. An announcement was made this week, just after we recorded, that a spin-off to The Boys has been announced and fast-tracked by Amazon Prime. It is going to be coming from the executive producer, Craig Rosenberg, who wrote this episode, actually. It is a spin-off set in a college. The official kind of synopsis or line that came from the article from Deadline says, set in America's only college exclusively for young adult superheroes and run, of course, by Vought International. The untitled boys spin-off is described as an irreverent, R-rated series that explores the lives of hormonal, competitive supes as they put their physical, sexual and moral boundaries to the test, competing for the best contracts in the best cities. Part college show, part Hunger Games, with all the heart, satire and raunch of the boys.
Good stuff.
That sounds great.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I am so getting ideas that they're going to do the G-Men and they're going to do Teenage Kicks, which are the two teenage-based kind of superhero teams. One is the spin on the X-Men, obviously, and the other is kind of the Young Avengers. Teenage Kicks is kind of like that Young Avengers, and I'm here for it. Absolutely. On all levels.
Absolutely. It sounds so interesting. They didn't get much coverage in the actual comic books. They existed in there. There was some stories with them, but it'll be really interesting to focus on them for a
They
TV
were
show.
in the first arc. The Teenage Kicks was definitely given an old runaround. And if you have read that first arc, you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. That's really good news, though. I'm really excited for that. So we have season 3 coming and a spin-off for the show once filming can get back in the world of the boys, I suppose.
So 2025.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. Let's get into our discussion about this episode. As I said, the explosive, mind-blowing episode of The Boys. Season 2, episode 7, Butcher, Baker, Candlestick Maker. The episode was written by, as I mentioned, Craig Rosenberg. This is the 4th episode that he's written for The Boys, and the final one, I think, this season that he's written. The episode was directed by Stefan Schwartz. He directed season 1, episode 5 of The Boys, Good for the Soul, which featured the infamous Laser Baby, which has now become a game on your Android and Apple device, where you can blow up FBI agents with the Laser Baby's eyes.
There's also a toy now that lights up in the dark. I kid you not. I went looking and I was like, oh my god, if I had the body for a cosplay, I would so do this.
Laser Baby. I love it, Chris.
Yeah. I would actually cosplay as the Laser Baby with another Lazy Baby. It'd be like that Inception thing. It's like a Lazy Baby with a Laser Baby dressed as a Laser Baby.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. I am saying that I'm a Laser Baby.
Okay. All right. We will
moving swiftly on.
Exactly. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for the episode?
Sure. Homelander and Stormfront further their master plan for Compound V by whipping up fear and suspicion across America. The super couple also begin to muscle in on Becca's son Ryan with frequent visits to her house. After telling him the truth of his life and promising to be a happy family, Homelander and Stormfront fly off with him to the distraught cries of his mother. Elsewhere, Huey is babysitting Lamplighter as he is forced to help Senator Victoria Newman make a case against Vought. As they pass the time between soup porn and news, Huey receives the terrifying news that Starlight is being held by Vought as a traitor and convinces Lamplighter to help him rescue her. At Vought Tower, Starlight gets rescued, but it all becomes too much for Lamplighter, who cooks himself. After the Lamplighter misfire, Mallory and the boys are forced to look to an unlikely source for answers and strong-arm Dr. Vogelbaum to testify against Vought at Newman's Senate hearing. At Capitol Hill, as Vogelbaum takes the stand, the hearing gets explosive.
And very, very bloody.
Absolutely. Paint the walls.
Exactly. I wonder if in the behind-the-scenes stuff, were some of those explosives set off and the actors didn't know, because their reactions as they just get covered in blood are fantastic. Every one of them that just gets a bit of explosive blood on them. Hilarious stuff. But also, like, what a shocking ending to a pretty shocking episode, really.
It does explain, we discussed the a similar powered individual escaping Shady Groves, as I keep calling it. It's not Shady Grove, it's the mental institution, or the asylum where they were being held.
Yeah.
In the previous episode, it does explain why she was hitchhiking.
Yes, absolutely. We probably will talk about that a bit later on as we get into the points from the episode, because I think that's likely who it is, but we'll definitely talk about it. Let's start off with our points for the episode, Chris. As usual, you kick us off with our protagonist boys moment. What's your boys moment for the episode?
Sure. Excuse me, let me get my singing voice ready. Do 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 diddloo diddloo diddloo. If that is so out of key, you do not know what I was humming, or at least trying to attempt to sing. It is Mission Impossible. Or I should say Mission Impossible for Huey. He has a mission, if he chooses to accept it, to save Starlight. I really just wanted to talk about the interceding moments from essentially where Huey and Lamplighter are engorging themselves, or Lamplighter anyway, in terms of the extracurricular daytime adult entertainment, all the way to the escape. So I really enjoyed this because this did feel like the worst potential idea in the world. Like, every aspect of this was like, this is going to end badly for all of them.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh,
Definitely.
like, okay, he's going to get captured, she's going to be captured, it's going to be like this thing, Homelander's going to swoop in. And no, so what we do see is, like, as John said in the summary, Huey sees that Starlight's been imprisoned, she's being branded the traitor. Lamplighter conveniently goes, I should probably be held in this one cell that kind of deadens powers and blah, 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 blah. And they decide, okay, we have to save her. So it was then discovering that there's like a service elevator entrance for kind of going through the pipes, and that's how Lamplighter and A-Train used to smuggle in co-ed girls, college girls, and you're kind of like, really? Okay. Even Huey's like, really? All the way up until where Lamplighter decides to be a hero. I literally thought he was gonna Human Torch it. Right. So we do see him like get distressed by that they've removed his statue, and he then human combustion or barbecue or whatever way you want to call it, extra crispy.
Yeah.
I thought for a second it was like, oh, cool, they're expanding it out that maybe he is Human Torch. He's able to he only ever just kind of controls the fire.
Okay.
Like that. That's where my head went.
Right.
When he drops to his knees and starts crying, or like
screaming
like,
at the pain. Yeah.
Screaming.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, because he says just beforehand that he's not just annoyed that they've removed a statue, he's annoyed that they've removed a statue because he wants to do this right in front of the statue of himself so they know exactly who he is. He wanted to make his father proud, he never got to make his father proud is what he's saying, and he wants to set himself on fire and kill himself right there in front of where the Seven have all of their meetings so that it will kind of bring that light to them, I guess.
Well, I suppose as Victoria Newman said, and you're the victim here, Lamplighter. Ultimately, there's all this going on, but he's pretty egotistical.
Oh yeah,
even just to have his death in front of his bronze figurine, in the conference room. So yeah.
Yeah.
Farewell.
I thought he was going to race out the window and fall a bit like, just because we did have Denethor in this episode. So I kind of did think a bit like Lord of the Rings, he might go crashing out the window and we'll see his flaming body fall down all those 99 flights floors.
I was kind of thinking, since this is The Boys, I kind of thought that his attempt at suicide wouldn't go very well, and we just have a very crispy Lamplighter for the next couple of episodes. Genuinely, it wasn't until Huey needed a hand that I realized, okay, Lamplighter's not coming back for this one.
That's the bit I thought was just so funny. It was just like, I was like, what's he doing? And it's perfectly encapsulated where he beats Annie's mother.
Yep.
And
that was
she's
funny.
like, what's with the hand?
Is that a human
And then
hand?
when he waves at, when Starlight frees herself and gets out and finds them, like, he waves using the hand. He holds the hand, he still holds the hand, and he waves with that. This is why I like Kripke. Like, he has a vision of the boys, and it's that kind of, they've really solidified themselves as this very topical, very deep hitting, when it wants to be kind of show. But at the same time, it's completely able to take the irreverent Mickey out of itself.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, they know, like, how over the top some of this is in terms of, but it's the same thing. Like, if you did have to get someone's hand for a hand printer, you would be carrying a hand around.
Yeah.
And it's just like, people would go, yeah, why? What? Like,
absolutely. And Huey's changed a lot. Huey would probably be completely freaked out by that in episode 1 of season 1. But now he's kind of like, waving the hand in the air at his former girlfriend. Definitely sparks flying again between the two of them.
He came to save her.
Exactly. Oh, what are you doing here, Huey? Oh, nothing. Just here to save you.
And it's good to know that Crunchy Lamplighter hand also works on the scanner. So their scanners.
Understand that.
Yeah, Vought maybe doesn't have the top-notch security that we think it does. In all honesty,
well, they didn't even lock him out after 2 years or whatever.
Exactly,
he was gone. So impressive.
But they probably locked out Starlight, because you're like, all right, okay. Anyway, this was just, I thought it was really fun.
Absolutely, but remember, we did talk about it before, Lamplighter is still a member of the Seven overall. Technically, he was supposed to be still on a mission. Was that what we said last episode? He's supposed to be still on a mission for them. He's not been declared dead or kicked out of the Seven, I think.
That's true.
So, whereas she has been declared, enemy number one.
Sort of privilege rights, almost, I suppose. Yeah.
Something like that, maybe. Chris, anything else on Huey's Mission Impossible?
No, I really just enjoyed it. It was just now, it ended terribly because the Star Witness is gone.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as you said, the sparks are rekindled. That potential lost love that at the end of the beginning of this season, we're like, okay, they're not getting back together. They are now becoming that Ross and Rachel. Will they, won't they?
Of course.
It's just like, they're on again. They're off again.
As I said.
Literally, I'm just waiting for one of them to, in season 3, we were on a break.
Well,
I want that.
I still think the better reference here, because it's a sci-fi comic book show, the better reference here is Fitzsimmons from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where they will just constantly find reasons to keep them broken up and getting back together for 5 minutes and then break it up again, or going off the other side of the universe and breaking them up that kind of way.
Well, it certainly went all melty, didn't it, in the corridor with Starlight's mother there. The music all went kind of lovey-dovey and soft. And it's testament to this show, because like you were saying before, Chris, I was kind of half expecting Homelander to come in and just slice through Starlight's mother or something like that. I just didn't.
This is the boys. You can't sit back and think everything's going to go fine.
Yeah, and I mean, as well, you don't put Huey in charge of protecting your witness. I think hopefully Billy Butcher has learnt that, but certainly in the immortal words of Mallory, she does say, "Hugh burnt our star witness."
Yep. Love that it's just, it's all his fault.
Basically.
Hopefully another plan. John, do you want to give us your boys or protagonist moment for the episode?
Yeah, it was just Mother's Milk. Effectively was given a way out here by Mallory, and I just kind of really liked it. I think we kind of got a little precursor towards it between Mallory and Vogelbaum, actually, because Mother's Milk, Mallory, they sort of turn up at Jonah Vogelbaum's massive mansion, and I was like going, oh, where are they going to? I didn't recognize it from season 1.
Yeah.
And her and Vogelbaum are talking about, well, I'm out of it now. I'm staying out of it. And she's going, yeah, I thought I was, but you never really are. Because they're trying to get him to come and fess up, in front of, the senator's, hearing as well. But they're not as, say, persuasive, shall we say, as, Billy Butcher is later on, with his strong arming. But, on the way out, she gives Mother's Milk this way out. Fly him and his wife and daughter off to another country. But I kind of just like the way that, when you go, it's about letting go. You don't get any justice for your father, for anything like that. It's just an out, and you can only take that out if you're willing to just let it all go. Release the revenge, the justice, all of that kind of stuff. Because otherwise you're never going to be able to. And I just thought this was really good because we forget Mother's Milk has has a kid and a wife still. Certainly compared to Frenchie and Billy Butcher, he's a little more tied in here. So I just thought that was kind of a really interesting conversation between the two of them.
Definitely. It's something you don't get to see very often, isn't it? In movies and TV shows, when they go to convince the star witness, it's usually they'll do another, they get challenged on it, and then they just do another quick discussion, and then the star witness goes, "Oh, actually, I totally understand," But obviously the conversation here between Vogelbaum and Mallory, it's an important one because Mallory did give up. She stepped away. She retired. She stepped out of this. So if there was anybody that you're going to convince that their decision that they already made was right, it was going to be Mallory, right? But I love that she tries to convince MM at least, to try and go on with his family. Everybody else doesn't have any family. We hear that a couple of times, even in this episode. Nobody else really wants to give up this and go back to the safety of their family.
Well, they've got like fathers and mothers, but not their own, family.
Yeah, but they don't really seem to like them very much.
Not really.
Except for
not
Frenchie.
at all.
Frenchie does talk about his mom in this episode and says that she used to cook with him, and he does have a lot of love for his mother. So everybody had their family moment in here. Also, have to say, absolutely loved seeing John Doman back in this episode.
Me too.
Love John Doman. We covered him on Gotham when he was on playing Cameron Falcone for 3 seasons of that show. Loved him in there. He was fantastic in The Wire. Loved him in that show, and always followed the stuff that he's done. So it's great to see him back in The Boys season 2. Didn't expect him back at all this season, even though he was mentioned by name early on in the season, which is usually a sign that the character's coming back.
Well, that's it. It was like the house I didn't get. I was like, oh, this is a new person. Mm-hmm. And because I'd forgotten his first name was Jonah, I was like, oh, new person. Who's this going to be? I did also like the fact that when Billy Butcher turns up, he just drives over the lawn to get to the front door, which was really nice. And then it all, of course, gets a little dark inside that mansion, really. I just thought it was so good. I mean, because as well, we hear about his SAS training sort of earlier, and it's just the threat over fine bone china and a cup of tea, which he then slurps. It's just so good. But basically, Vogelbaum, if you don't testify with us, you think you're out, but you won't be, because it won't be Vought that comes after you and your family. It will be me, and I'll start with that nice little lady through there, because his daughter's there looking after him, and then I'll get your 2 sons and their family, and so he starts sort of striking off the list who he's going to go for, and of course, Vogelbaum is persuaded. Otherwise, the strong arm technique is sometimes very effective.
Well, I think the thing is with Billy Butcher, you absolutely know he means it as well. So, it's what's the most imminent threat here? Is it that Vought will go after my family sometime in the future, or that Billy Butcher will walk into the next room and start his moment of revenge on my daughter in the other room right now? That's basically the choice that he has,
And it really cements Carl Urban as this character, where he was able there as a prim and proper British man, drinking the cup of tea. Well, what does he call it? He doesn't even call it a cup of tea.
Cup of cha.
Cup of cha.
Cup of cha.
He goes, a cup of cha, haven't had one in ages, and he's just sitting there with this just sadistic smile.
Yeah.
But it's a perfectly normal, good smile, but just on him, in the leather, in the Hawaiian shirt, looking at Vogelbaum, and you're just like, that is probably the scariest thing you could ever see, just staring back at you after they've said that he will go to town on your family.
Definitely.
Like, do 10 times worse than the Soups.
I wondered if he was going to dunk a biscuit as well, just for real, just kind of menacing biscuit dunking that he was going to do in the tea.
He could pull it off, definitely.
But I think as well, the other thing I liked about this is I think he sees parallels with Vogelbaum and how he treated Homelander and brought him up with his own father, and that's what really then kind of cements this sort of no tolerance, all in approach in terms of help me or I'll kill all your family.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of interesting as well.
I thought it was very,
and it works.
Yeah, I thought it was a very interesting piece of information that we get about Homelander, that he was a normal, lovable child up until he was 6 or 7. And I think the actual words that Vogelbaum says was, and then I went to work on him, you know? He was pushing him to become this brutal person that Homelander became. That is the work that Vogelbaum did, was to turn him into this hardened superhero.
Yeah, that Homelander actually didn't want it.
Exactly.
He and was ultimately forced, and you get that sense as well. You can see it in Billy Butcher's eyes, as Vogelbaum is saying this, just, that connection, as we've just seen, then earlier, with Billy Butcher and his own dad.
Exactly. Speaking of which, that's my protagonist moment for the episode as well. Billy meeting up with his mom and dad.
Fly, my pretty. Fly with it.
Nice setup job, definitely. It was an interesting kind of moment that we had. We had mentioned a few episodes ago when Billy was talking to his aunt. She was saying that his parents were on their way over. Billy's mom gives him a call saying that his dad has died. Can he come over and comfort her because the father's died? Was there any doubt that his father was actually alive there? It would seem massively coincidental that his father died on the flight over from the UK that Billy knew was happening, basically. So I thought, anyway. But we do see the appearance of Billy's dad, played by John Noble. Genuinely the worst father in all of cinema and TV.
Absolutely.
He was Denethor, as John mentioned, in Lord of the Rings, a terrible father who tried to set his own son alight. He was the father from Fringe. Father-son relationship there. Definitely not a good relationship at all.
Nope.
So he's the man to call when you need an evil a-hole on your team as a father character.
Definitely.
He's great in here, but it's such an interesting, again, a very Kripke thing, I think, when you see issues with fathers and sons. That was one of the main kind of running themes throughout the first 5 seasons of Supernatural, fathers who treat their children poorly to bring them up into being strong people, I suppose, is this attitude. And as John mentioned, there's definitely a line there where you can see that maybe Vogelbaum did the same thing to Homelander, and that's why Billy has no tolerance for him. So, but it is a great discussion between the two, because I was expecting anyway. I was expecting that this character would be going, I'm really sorry for the way I treated you. But no, he keeps pushing this idea that Lenny was soft. Lenny died because his father didn't treat Lenny the same way that he treated Billy. That Lenny couldn't take it. And it's all Billy's fault that Lenny killed himself. We hear here it's slightly different origin story. Chris talked about it in Chris's Corner a couple of episodes ago. Lenny, his brother, was actually just killed by a bus in the comic books. In the show here, we find out that Lenny killed himself. He shot himself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, and that seems to have been one of the catalysts that made Billy go join the SAS. That he couldn't protect his brother.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Exactly. Or he didn't want to.
I was very much expecting that encounter with his father to end with Billy throwing him off the balcony.
Me too.
Else?
I did kind of think.
Literally, until the mother turned up, I'm like, this is not going to end well.
This is going to end.
This is an additional reason. And I was expecting to see Vought's fingerprints on it and, literally, a sniper, because they were out on the balcony, a sniper.
Oh, okay.
Kind of, I was expecting, this was a full setup.
Oh, right. No, I literally just thought it was going to be Billy picking up his old father and throwing him over the balcony. I thought that was it. He's going to die anyway in a couple of months' time. Billy just going, don't really care about this man.
Well, I think as well with Black Noir kind of creeping around in the last few episodes, I just was there going, okay, where's Black Noir? I kind of thought it was going to be one of the two things. Either Billy Butcher, rather than putting his dad up against the patio window, I thought it was just going to chuck him off.
Yeah.
And certainly when you learn what his mum thinks of her own husband later on, then she probably wouldn't have been too miffed by it. But also, he was just going to get taken out by a Black Noir who's creeping around, as he has done as well earlier in this episode.
Because Black Noir does like to creep.
He does.
Yeah.
So I will say just, I was slightly taking out of it nothing to do with the performance or the storyline. It's just the actor himself. John Noble. I'm so used to seeing him as an American, especially for Fringe, which was what, 7, 8 seasons.
Yep.
Yeah.
Plus the few others. He always just plays the more kind of well-to-do American, so it's I'm so used to that.
Right.
And then seeing him have this very much almost London, Bristol kind of amalgam English accent.
That really is an amalgam of English accents.
It is.
It really was, because it was just like, no, if you listen to it, like, he just had emphasis where it shouldn't have had an emphasis.
Yeah.
They've obviously got him a dialect coach, or he probably would have as an actor. He went dialect coach. He was like, okay, he's UK based. Where? Because they haven't set where Billy is in this one. They haven't given us where Billy is from.
Yeah, they just said the reason why he has an odd accent is because he travels a lot. Because I agree with you, there are definitely moments when you know it's the same dialect coach that they've given to Carl Urban, because weirdly, John Noble also has a little bit of an Australian accent, much like Carl
exactly.
Urban.
See, that was the bit. So
it
was fine, and it was a great scene. It gave us a bit more clarity on the story history of Billy, and it was fast. It was just, there was the odd line or word that I was just like, ooh. It's basically like when Brad Pitt did that terrible Irish traveller accent in Snatch.
Whoa.
Where he's like, do you want to buy a dog? And it was just so, it was basically My Big Fat Gypsy's wedding. He's gone and listened to a couple of people and went, sure, I can pass it off.
Wow.
Now, I'm pretty sure when English actors try and do American accents, or so you'll be like, he's Louisiana and he's New Orleans and he's got a bit of like Georgia and he's got a bit of New York in there.
Yeah.
Like, it's just this hodgepodge.
Well, they always say British actors doing American accents do an American accent, whereas there are 50 different American accents. So they just pick one and go with it. I'm amazed you've said that, Chris. That's the first time I've ever heard anybody complain about the Snatch accent that Brad Pitt did, because that was his apology accent. He did that accent specifically as an apology for his work on Devil's Own, where he sounded like, well, he was supposed to be an IRA man in America, who sounded like he'd never left America, despite the fact he was supposed to be from Ireland and flown over by plane the same day or something like that. So, that was supposed to be his apology accent. There's a few actors that possibly need to do that. But anyway, I did love the resolution to this story with Billy and his dad, that his mom actually does hate his father, stays with him because he's going to be dead in a few months anyway. She just thought bringing the two of them together might let Billy let go of the hatred he had with his father and just move on, because it's not worth it. He's going to be gone in a few months, basically. So
that was hilarious.
And I must say, once again, just for our wonderful boys and girls, our listeners to this podcast, it is so difficult talking about anything that happens with Billy Butcher, especially in this episode, because everybody around him is using the C word, which is absolutely impossible for us to use on this podcast. Everybody, his aunt did it a couple of weeks ago. We had the senator who was talking to Billy. That's their first introduction to each other. His mom is using it. His dad's using it. Everybody. So I can't. There's so few quotes that I can pull from these episodes.
That's it. It is see you next Tuesday to the max in this episode. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. When you talk about, say, the resolution, I loved this because it did the exact opposite of what the mum wanted. The mum wanted Billy to stop beating himself up and being so violent because of what happened to poor Lenny. In actual fact, it's made Billy resolute that he can be the biggest a-hole and be worse. And that's what happens. We see when he goes to Vogelbaum. Like, he's actually leaning into being the biggest see you next Tuesday. Yeah. Like, it's just, I was expecting, again, I talk about this a lot. When I think they're going to zig, they zag. And it's great writing. That's what you love from this, because you're like, I did not expect that. You didn't do what I expected you.
But I think he's always been a see you next Tuesday, though.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. We've said that from the start, the way he treats the people around him to get what he wants rather than what is important for everybody else. The way he makes everybody leave everything behind, as long as it fits into Billy's plan, it's the right plan. So
okay, you're saying it's dialed up to 11 though now. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Definitely.
Exactly.
So that was it for our protagonist moments for the episode. That's me closing those ones out. Chris, do you want to take us on with your antagonist, your 7 moment from the episode? What's the one that struck you or blew your mind?
Well, it's funny you should say that. It's almost like you could see what I had written.
It might be.
I'm going to say Crisis in the Court.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to try and get a DC reference, Crisis on Infinite Earths,
Nice. There's a few in this
Final
episode.
Crisis,
Yeah.
all that. I got Crisis in the Court.
Nice.
Because this really is... this was not what I was expecting. This is... We get them... Like, they do get to court. They get Vogelbaum in there. You've got all the 7 there.
Yeah. Well,
You've got a majority of the 7 in there. You've got Vic the Veep, or Victoria Newman, who's about to literally kind of break the Vought America piece down. You literally have Edgar, the PR agent. You had everyone in that room. And things start popping off.
Absolutely. Like, I love that introduction when Newman is telling everybody in the room, this is what's going to happen right here. We're going to take down the company because we have the one person that knows everything about them. He's going to tell you exactly what this company did. And you see the reaction as Vogelbaum's name is announced to the court. You see Homelander freaking out because he knows exactly what's going to happen here. And then heads start a popping.
And so the interesting part, and the only reason I really wanted to bring this as my kind of my antagonist moment, is it looks from like the way that Homelander and Stormfront are reacting. This doesn't seem like their plan.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
Like they are as shocked. Now, Stormfront is a great actress.
Yeah.
We know that. She's able to slip in and out of a German accent. She is able to mask...
like yourself.
Yes, exactly. She slipped out in her German accent in the when she gave her origin, remember?
Okay.
She kind of had that... She started talking slightly in German.
Right.
I don't remember that. But if you say so, then I'm willing to accept that.
She correctly pronounced a few German words, I think. Is
Yes, I think that was probably it.
Okay,
that was
grand.
more.
Yeah.
correct pronunciation.
But they are shocked by this. And that's the very interesting part.
Yeah.
That this doesn't seem to be part of their plan. I think their plan with this whole trial piece was just essentially get, like, it was going to be nothing really. It was, they had got Starlight, she was the traitor, they were going to use social media. We see them radicalizing a lot of other Americans. We see a lot of types of things like that. And this was just going to be a blip, as she calls it.
Yeah.
In previous episodes. The fact that everything starts popping off, literally, I'm like, this sets up a very interesting place. Now, and we talked about it at the very opening of this, in previous episodes, I had surmised that the person who had killed Rayner was the soup that was in, as I call it, Shady Acres, Cindy, who had literally exploded a guard. And then at the end of that episode, we do see her hitchhiking away.
Exactly.
And I was like, interesting. Where are they going to go with that? I thought that was maybe setting it up for season 3, that there was a load of escapee crazy soups that the boys would need to hunt down.
Yeah.
I thought that I was kind of where they might be going with that, and we kind of agreed. The fact that this has happened, and we see multiple explosions of a lot of people, potentially both sides, I'm like, okay, maybe this is her.
Yeah.
This is her, like, going rogue, if you will. But the fact that Vogelbaum is kind of, before he even gets a few words out, I'm like, maybe not. This is Edgar's doing, maybe.
Yeah.
Or there's more to it. Maybe. I just thought it was really interesting. It sets us up in a nice place.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's all a little unknown for sure because, as you're saying, you see Homelander, Queen Maeve, and Stormfront almost doing an Avengers back-to-back in the courtroom. Ashley is on the floor trying to protect herself, all that kind of stuff. So it's, as you say, that's really, really cool that they aren't the ones involved in this. It's probably Edgar, I feel, out of all of them. Okay. And I'm not ruling Cindy out, but I suppose it'll be interesting to know what her motivation is, because I kind of have a feeling, why would she be protecting Vought given what they've done to her, unless she was more than happy to do that. But then I don't understand why she was fleeing, and Stormfront, took her down. It feels like she's not a part of Vought unless she's maybe reporting directly to Edgar. I just don't know. I want to see her motivation, because I feel from what we've seen that she would be attacking Vought, not people trying to take down Vought.
I think she's on the warpath. And remember, Vogelbaum was Vought up until he retired.
That's true.
He
as well.
Absolutely was Vought. So I was more intrigued by, what did she need to be in the room? Is she hidden in the room somewhere wearing a wig or a hat or something? Or is she watching this on TV from a distance and just picking them off, watching the coverage that's on there? Also, it's not just Vogelbaum and some random people in there. We also see Shockwave, A-Train's replacement, losing his head in here as well. So there was a suggestion that A-Train might be able to go back to the Seven in a couple of weeks' time after a meeting that has been planned. Is this possibly, how they created a hole for him
and
in
the Church
Seven?
of the Collective.
Yeah.
It's actually... Oh, wow.
Did they create his position?
I did not connect that.
That's just something that popped into my head when I saw Shockwave's head pop.
Yeah, because in a scene in this episode, we do see the head of the collective say that he is meeting Edgar later and is sure he can get stuff. That is interesting that they potentially have other soups working for. Maybe it's never been Cindy.
Mm-hmm. Maybe
it's the collective doing the dirty work. Anyway,
there you go.
Yeah.
Really interesting. It sets us up in a nice place.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Well, the one thing I also was thinking about with Cindy was, and I know it's a very similar power, don't get me wrong, but when Cindy was exploding people, she was exploding them entirely. And she's what it seems like is these people have their powers and they've been using them a bit, but this was very targeted. Every single person lost their heads, very specifically lost their heads. So I don't know. She seemed to just explode everybody around her when she wanted to. This seemed very targeted. So that's why I had a question over Cindy.
Could it be the crazy psychiatrist from the collective?
Could be, because,
really interesting.
blows your mind.
She's blows your mind.
Was that the only reason?
Gentlemen, so that is it. Crisis in the Courts.
There you go.
I'm going to swiftly move it over. Mr. Harrison.
Why, Danke, darling.
What is your antagonist moment? What is your 7 moment?
It is Black Noir. Isn't that invincible after all? It's just a short point, but I just loved it when Queen Maeve came in to help Starlight, who was absolutely getting flung around the conference room by Black Noir after she's escaped. And I was like, what is she stuffing into his mouth? I thought it was some kind of sedative or just trying to gag him. I was even contemplating that she might just snap his neck or something. But no. Nut allergy to the rescue, or peanut power, fellow boys and girls. Yes, Black Noir has a nut allergy, and he's just left sort of rocking and shaking as the allergy spreads throughout. And the really interesting thing after it is that Queen Maeve afterwards is just kind of like leaves him there.
Yeah.
But she's not going to go with Starlight either. But I love that she helps out here, certainly because, we saw her earlier in the episode where Eleanor has left her. She's having breakup sex, and that one part where, she just kind of pleads to Ashley, who comes in and sees this breakup sex and says, she's freaking out because the narrative of her having a strong lesbian relationship has just been blown wide apart with the guy lying next to Queen Maeve.
Yeah. It's
but
not even a woman. You were the number 2 most favorite lesbian couple in America. Oh, God, Ashley.
And Queen Maeve just saying, for once, Ashley, can you just be human? And she kind of head down and apologizes as she walks out. But, we were talking about Queen Maeve maybe teaming up with Starlight. We didn't get it here, but she's certainly... There is no love lost now with Vought whatsoever. Eleanor has gone. Homelander really hasn't got her back anymore. It is making her life miserable, as is Vought with the whole pushing of her lesbian relationship, and Eleanor has also, as I said, has left now. So, but I just like that it was this whole thing with Queen Maeve. And I mean, we kind of, at last, even though it was just a dining room table, we did see her kind of freak out and fling the dining room table across her apartment.
Yeah.
No, it was good to get a bit of that emotion. It feels like it's been pent up with Queen Maeve for a number of episodes. And of course, it was an almond joy that was put in there. So
I know Huey called it one of the top 3 worst candy bars ever created, but I didn't think it would kill someone. Remember, she didn't just leave Black Noir behind after stuffing the almond joy in his mouth. He was taking out his insulin pen, and she kicked it out of his hand as well. So has that killed him?
Well,
is he definitely dead? Is that the end of Black Noir?
Well, probably not. But having said that, Vault security, again, given that all the sprinkler system went off with Lamplighter going up in flames, no one came very quickly.
Nope.
I suppose the whole thing is that you need to get out of the building, but I kind of felt like there would be something.
That's what we see with the security guard who's supposed to be standing outside Starlight's room. You hear the alarms gone off with the fire, and he's like, all right, I'm out of here, and just runs away. I loved seeing fully powered Starlight, that moment when she gets her powers back, because she'd been kind of cowed in the room, unable to use her powers because it's a super-proof room. And as she gets them back, you see the eyes light up, and she just blows the door out of the way. It's cool seeing Starlight use her powers that way. It's deadly. And the battle again with Black Noir, I thought was a really good fight between the two of them, because she's, soup on soup action, always good to watch. I know Lamplighter would probably say that, because that seemed to be all he was doing for most of the episode.
I will very quickly call out, we got to see Black Noir's face.
Yes.
He looks Wade Wilson-esque, Deadpool-esque.
Yep.
He looked either scarred or burned or something.
It's certainly very damaged, isn't it? Yeah.
Which is very interesting.
Absolutely.
Very interesting, because it means they are going completely the opposite direction of the comic books. Again, here for it.
Yeah.
Here for it.
Yeah. They might as well take a shot at Deadpool. They might as well include that in the show.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like Nathan Mitchell, the actor who plays him. I know a lot of people have seen Nathan Mitchell doing interviews, and I've heard a lot of people wishing that he'd take off the mask more often. So,
no, that is not.
They're going with the burnt
that
Deadpool
is not
face.
But no, it was definitely cool.
Yeah.
Darick, sorry, John, is that the end of your?
Certainly is. Peanut power.
Excellent.
Oh.
Peanut power all the way. Darick, what is your point?
For my antagonist moment, I'm just going to talk about the family again. It seems to be all about family for me this episode. Homelander and Stormfront and Ryan makes 3. I think this is just an interesting development for these characters. It's kind of always been a thing with Homelander. If he wants something, he takes it, is pretty much his kind of mode all the way through this show. So he has that moment with Stormfront where she has a memory of her child, because her child used to be a baby. She sees a baby in the crowd, and Homelander kind of gets this idea going, oh, I can show you something that you might be interested in. And they take a little flight out to Becca and Ryan's house, and convince Ryan to come and join their family by putting Becca at odds. Basically, they take Ryan, tell him all about the world outside, the compound that he's been living in for all of his life. They talk to him about things that he couldn't even know about, games that he couldn't possibly play, or games that his mom could never show him because it shows the outside world. They work on him over and over again, and then while Becca's making dinner for the lot of them, they take him on a trip up in the sky to show him that he's living in a compound and that his mom has been lying to him the whole time. So this is a really tough situation for Becca. Obviously, she's been trying to protect Ryan so much for these, whatever it is, 8 or 9 years that she's been away, 7 or 8 years maybe at this stage, but they're gone now. So she has no purpose, effectively. He's realized that this whole compound that was there was the Truman Show, all built around Ryan, hiding Ryan from the world, and hiding Ryan's ability to see what the world is like, effectively. So it's a very attractive proposition that's there from Homelander and Stormfront, but now they have their evil, blonde-haired, blue-eyed child. Future evil, blonde-haired, blue-eyed child. in tow.
Well, I suspect that they did leave out the fact that Homelander raped his mother. And so maybe there is a chance before they really get their claws into him that if that truth outs, then yeah, he kind of goes against them. Because yeah, if there was nothing more that kind of brought a little bit of sick into my mouth, it was the idea of maternal Stormfront. Oh my goodness.
Absolutely.
That is the last person you want to get their fangs into your kid. Oh my goodness. It was frightening. And even just that, her and Homelander, that just it's take.
Yeah.
Homelander is his kid, I get it, and so on to some extent, but Stormfront there really, you could just imagine if Becca thinking to herself, if I was a soup, I would come over and rip your head off. Oh.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was so interesting to see Becca's speech to Homelander. Essentially going, but like, it's not going to happen. You like, the difference is he has me, blah, blah, blah. I did think that was the end of it.
Really?
I did think that, like, that's the way. I was like, okay, she got through to him. It's all going to go well. Yeah. What I enjoy about this potentially is she's going to go try and fight Butcher now.
Maybe, yeah. And
like, if she asks, go kill Homelander and get back my son, that renews Butcher's mission.
Yeah. He certainly doesn't need anything.
Because his initial mission was kill Homelander because he killed Becca. Becca's alive. Becca doesn't want to go with him because Ryan. And he lost his mission to a degree. Now this renews it.
Exactly.
So it again definitely interestingly sets up season 3.
Definitely. Any other outstanding moments from the episode? Chris, what else do you have to talk about from the episode?
Eagle the Archer likes to go hunting.
That was an interesting one, wasn't it? Yeah.
I thought this was this is just it was a passing joke bit that Eagle the Archer is no longer as part of the collective. Essentially, he told them he wanted to leave, and they basically leaked this video of him with his partner, essentially dressed up as a deer who he hunts, which was fantastic.
With his spear.
I just thought that was funny. But then how, again, this is, we know this is a direct rip at Scientology, obviously just based on everything they've said and done. And the backstory of this, but the way that they this mimics the other people and what has happened to real life celebrities who have left Scientology, leaking of tapes, but the terminology, like it's reminiscent of what they say. It was just, I just found it like humorous in terms of that scene, but very nuanced in terms of how they wrote the rest of it around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure there's also references here to many cults that have been around that have done something very similar. I like the fact they brought in A-Train to kind of react to this story, because it seems like the Deep was just told, Eagle the Archer, it's like, yeah, great friend of mine. He's out now. You're not allowed to talk to him again. Oh, yeah, I never really liked him.
I know, the Deep.
Whereas you see A-Train hearing this story and kind of going, hang on a second, there's something weird about this. Do you not think it's weird? Deep? And he's like, no, I'm never really my friend. Also, just quickly, while I'm on the Deep, I love Chase Crawford's reaction when they're watching the exploding heads in the courtroom. For some reason, the Deep checks his head to see if it's still on his body. It's so odd. It's such an odd reaction.
It's so good.
But I'm sure he's just kind of empathetic to the fact that loads of people that he's seeing on screen are losing their heads. But it's a weird one. He just looks like he's touching his head to see if it's still there. But that's the Deep.
Yeah, it's amazing. Chase Crawford amazingly plays that kind of surfer, kind of the surfer dude, slightly silly, dumb. Because I don't think it's empathetic. Yeah. He literally is checking to make sure his head's not going to explode.
Exactly. And it's interesting as well. Like Chase Crawford, you know, as the actor in this show, he's the one that spends the least amount of time with any of the major cast of the show. He's only had that first episode, I think, and then he got sent off on his own to this other town. So now he has a bit of time with A-Train. At least there's a little bit of kind of moments with one of the other members of the main cast. But he's very much been on his own journey for the last season and a half. So yeah, really good fun moments in there. John, your outstanding moment for the episode?
I suppose it's just that first bookend right at the start. It's the murder of the shopkeeper. And I think, you know, like to your point, Chris, the mix in the boys from some really serious treatment of current issues, problems, to the deep checking whether his head's still there, even though he's watching the exploding heads on TV. And it's this murder of the shopkeeper, and I suppose more importantly, it's that bombardment of fear, negative, fake news, in some respects, to the population. That continual bombardment where, you know, after a time, it just becomes trigger words to get people all gammony and all really, you know, red-faced, like a big joint of gammon, or, you know, just wound up. And in this case, and you can see it, you know, the kid in his bedroom just not knowing what to do. And in the end, it's played out with violence as he thinks the shopkeeper is a soup. And when he looks over, after he's shot him in the head, he's not coming back from this. He has just killed someone. And it's that leading to suspicion of other people and fear. And I think the really interesting thing here as well on it is that, you know, the first thing we see are Stormfront and Homelander making more propaganda out of it. We've given money to this charity, but they, along with the media outlets, along with the narrative, I suppose, coming from Vought, are whipping this up, and you kind of get that really fake emotional response from Stormfront and Homelander to the death of this shopkeeper. And I just thought, you know, it's really on point for the times that we live in.
Those three little words really that we've heard so often over the last 3 or 4 years. Thoughts and prayers. Let's move on and get back to our campaign that's going on here. This is absolutely how so many of us have felt over the last 4, 5, 6 years, really. I'm sure you guys are the same as me. This is the constant bombardment from both sides of headlines or memes or just a set of words that's supposed to get you riled up on either side. I have friends now who used to be people that watched soap operas and reality TV shows who now watch CNN and Fox News like they watched reality TV shows. They talk about them the same way they used to talk about reality TV shows. They are so whipped up into a frenzy by the headlines that are out there that it's no wonder that people are getting more and more aggressive at each other on the internet, because everybody's being whipped up by everything that they're seeing out there. And this is what they're doing. This is exactly what Homelander and Stormfront are doing. There's a reason why she's called Stormfront. It's not just because those are her powers. She's here to whip up a storm around her. And Homelander is using the exact type of phrases we've heard from another really weird yellow-haired person over the last couple of years to this audience that he has in front of him. This is again, the show was done last summer. It was completely finished filming. There's nothing recent about this, but it was all there plain to see for all of us for the last few years. But it's not just on one side. This is absolutely, and they're very clear to put it in there. The senator that we have seen throughout the series, Senator Newman, her words are in there in this. This guy, he's seeing the news of her as well as Homeland and Stormfront.
It's the montage of divisive, polarizing headlines. Exactly. You know, it's the immigrants, it's the terrorists, it's the corrupt politicians, it's the bad corporations. All of this that kind of being brought together into this soup that In this case, you can't actually process within your own mind, and it ends up being the only way you can do it is through raw or physical actions by just shouting or sticking where you are, or in this case with the kid here, murdering the shopkeeper. And, it was just, really, it was some opening. That's
Absolutely.
for sure.
And we know from season 1, the thing that they're all whipping up about, what Homelander's trying to whip everybody up on their side about, is the international terrorists that are on the attack. The soup terrorists. The ones Homelander created at the end of season 1. He's the person.
Sorry, not soup terrorists. Super villains.
Super villains, exactly. But they're the ones he created back at the end of season 1. So he's now whipping up everybody against them, who haven't really done anything at all throughout this season of the show. These super villains that he's blaming. There's been no terrorist attack by them at all, but he's whipping everybody up with this frenzy to go after the thing he created, effectively, which was always his mission. So he's achieving his mission with the help of Stormfront here as well. So, really interesting moments in this episode, and a really stark opening to the episode.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah, radicalization to violent extremism through misinformation and through the use of quote unquote fake news, through sensationalism in online short snippets, the consumption of or I should say biased and non-biased media, be it all sides, echo chambers through social media that have been created in the positive and negative. There are positives to echo chambers sometimes.
Only if you just can't hear the voices that you don't want to hear.
Exactly. It is it's a 21st century problem that will become more than likely epidemical in the years in 2021. It is something I just hate.
What a lovely thought.
This opening of this scene, the opening of this was so, I use the term shocking and mind-blowing. I know, and that's actually not as a joke, because I have not seen it so well visualized in an empathetic way, because we do see this guy, we see his journey to radicalization. And that is something you never see in 99% of any dramatic recreations or dramatical shows. You see the end product. This shows you the actual transformation over time of what is considered a normal guy who gets up, reads his internet, his news, says goodbye to his mother, goes to work, stops in for a coffee, goes home. Like that, just normal. And we see it over, like, stares longingly at a girl as he walks by the corridor. But it's just that constant barrage.
Absolutely.
So
it's 24-hour news over and over and and over again.
Well, that's it. I mean, who needs 24-hour news? I mean, I ask you.
Yeah, like there were days even just after the war where there wasn't enough news to fill up a 15-minute bulletin. How the hell are we doing 24-hour news now? But that's beside the point. It's a fantastic moment, and I'm really glad we talked about it, at least in the episode here, because if it wasn't for our format, that probably would have been the top point that we talk about, that opening of the episode, because it's a really great way that they've shown it on screen. We've kind of talked through everything that I wanted to talk about, so I don't really have another outstanding moment from the episode. I do want to just reference the conversation between Frenchie and the female, finally back together again, Kimiko and Serge. We have both of their names now as the season goes on. But yeah, it's a nice little moment as they're watching over the senator's house. With what looks like a massive rocket launcher beside
it
Frenchie.
does, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I couldn't work that out.
It was like I thought for a second it was like just a sniper rifle or something.
Well, I was expecting a sniper rifle, and then the camera pulls back, and it literally looks like he's about to send a rocket over at that crowd of people if they attack, is what it looks like. But we do get, they have made up. We saw that last episode, and now it looks like Kimiko's going to teach him the sign language. They're going to start with guns, as you always would between these two. So, what do we normally talk about? Guns, right? Let's teach you guns first, which I like. I really like that. And also, just a quick note, I suppose, I also liked the reference to how weird Ryan actually is by being safely secured into his mom's house is he's like any other kid. He's making YouTube videos from his Lego toys, but he's making The Blind Side. And he's also made Dances with Wolves, the Lego video with his mom.
Absolutely.
Odd. But I love it. Do you want to watch my Dances with Wolves Lego video in a moment? He's very creative. Clearly, he's very experienced. It looked exactly like the Lego movies, but very weird that he would. Those are the types of movies that he'd be making. But
yes.
they're the ones that his mom loves. They're his mom's favourites, I suppose. So kind of nice. Anybody else have any other notes for the episode?
Nothing for me. John, anything from your side?
Just that the title of the episode is Butcher Baker Candlestick Maker, which is that reference to the old nursery rhyme. Mm-hmm. It's also the name of the 12th volume of the collected comics of the boys as well. So yes. Yeah. Just a little bit of background there. Yeah.
Butcher, Baker, Candlestick Maker, you're all out to sea. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that where we are in episode 7 of The Boys? We're all out to sea, I think.
Yes. That makes way more sense in my head. And the dish ran away with the spoon.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
That's how
exactly.
My nursery
I know,
rhymes are.
exactly. But I think it's time to get onto a certain yogurty corner. It's not Muller, it's Chris's corner.
Yeah. I do. I am very yogurty.
You are in a white t-shirt.
I am.
Yes,
I am.
What have you got for us this week, Chris?
So this one I was going to talk about Vogelbaum. Johann Vogelbaum, not Jonah. Johann. So I just want to quickly talk about the differences between this character, since he is so central and pivotal, or was pivotal, in this episode. So I'll talk about, obviously, so in this TV show, he's played by John Daman. He's the CSO of Vought International. And essentially, he's the creator of Homelander. So, as we saw in season 1, after he retired kind of from being the CSO, he's visited by Homelander, and Homelander's able to kind of squeeze out of him that the Becca has the baby, and that's how we kind of end up where we end up. He also claimed he's confronted by Butcher and Stillwell, and they're able to kind of say essentially that Homelander squeezed the truth out of him, when we know actually he's the one who paralyzed. Homelander is the one who paralyzed Vogelbaum. Yes. Now, Vogelbaum is completely different in the comic books. So that's the character. That's where we are. He's been paralyzed. He's been living away from Vought, away from everything with his family in the TV show up until his death now. In the comic books, it's a lot different. In the comic books, Johann Vogelbaum is actually the Jewish scientist who is responsible for creating Compound V for the Nazis. So he took it, and he's the one who he took the formula for Compound V and some samples along with Stormfront and brought them to the United States as part of his deal to get across. He started working for Vought America, for Frederick Vought, another a person who's come over from Germany, and essentially they together start using it to create Compound V. Mallory, and remember in the comic books it's Greg Mallory. He essentially convinces Johann to start working for the CIA.
Right.
And this is where in the comic books, and I think we briefly mentioned it, the boys are injected with Compound V in order to just temporarily boost their power, boost them to Soup level strength and invulnerability and stuff, so they can take on Soup's one-on-one without kind of getting their head squished. And it's actually him who starts working with Mallory and the boys way before Huey, when they were still the Black Ops. Later on, Mallory orders Butcher to kill Johann.
Right.
Butcher spares him. And starts getting him and tells everyone he's dead and gets him to start working on a way to, he becomes a bit like their Frenchie. He becomes a way to exterminate anyone with Compound V.
Right, very good.
So essentially like this, anyone who has Compound V, how can we kill them? Interestingly enough, once this was figured out, Billy then kills Johan.
Right.
Kills him by his head.
Yeah,
Goes pop.
Another exploding.
So there is an interesting connection there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, very good, Chris.
So there you go. That is the Vogabond, Johan Vogabond.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that, Chris. Really good to have Chris's Corner back this week.
Yeah, absolutely.
One final Chris's Corner next week on episode 8 of season 2 of The Boys. Let us know if you have anything that we want to talk about in Chris's Corner by emailing us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, where all of our feedback comes to. Let's close out this episode of The Boys. Overall, John, what do you think of the episode?
Yeah, really loved this episode. I'm give it 4.5 Krusty the Lamplighters out of 5. I really did enjoy it. I think from the kind of pretty serious start, and it kind of descended into that lovely madness that The Boys brings, from Huey taking Lamplighter on a tragic rescue mission, ultimately, for Starlight. Queen Maeve, again, more tragedy there, but coming and saving the day, for Starlight, who was getting choked out of it by Black Noir. With the peanut rescue, and then that final scene as well with the exploding heads. It was just it reminded me of the Canadian show where it's like I'm squishing your head, I'm squishing your head, it was just really, really good. And you're like, who is that? To what extent does Edgar know? Stormfront, Homelander, Queen Maeve, it was all really, really good. And yeah, having John Doman back as old Vogelbaum is really was really nice to see, even though it was for a short moment. So yeah, 4.5 Krusty the Lamplighters out of 5 from me.
Nice one, John. Nice one. What do you think, Chris?
Absolutely enjoyed it immensely. Pretty much for all the same reasons John did. I am slightly concerned. We have 1 hour left in this season of The Boys. I do not think they're going to be able to wrap up everything as neatly in a bow. Yeah. But as we have discussed, both on this podcast and off air, there is a season 3. We know it is coming. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we stand 60 minutes from now.
Absolutely. Yeah. I always like a show that has a cliffhanger at the end of a season. I think it's a fun way to close out your show, especially if we know that the next season's coming. I think we've had that problem before, Chris. We've had some shows that didn't get a following season, had a massive cliffhanger on them, like Penny Dreadful City of Angels, anyone? Ended with massive cliffhangers on it and isn't getting a second season. So we will never know what happens with those characters in future, unfortunately.
No. At least, yeah, as you say, we know what's happening, and fingers crossed it's 12 months from now, maybe. We'll see how it goes. If they have to have this much blood and this much CGI in the show to protect people, it may take a little bit longer. Thanks so much for that, guys. Let's get on to our feedback on episode 6. First up, we had an email in from Will B on last week's episode. He said, "Hello, gentlemen. First time sending an email feedback because I couldn't quite fit it all on Twitter. Favorite scene from episode 6 was I loved the car ride scene between Starlight and Butcher. Starlight doesn't seem like she's quite ready to accept everything that comes along with being all in with the boys, but is acknowledging she's changing by admitting that she doesn't feel the sympathy and regret anymore." Favourite line for the episode? Frenchie saying, "Don't be so closed-minded," in regards to MM coming to grips with the fact that he got choked out by a giant soup penis. Don't be so closed-minded.
Excellent.
Love it. Good old Frenchie. Will says, "Love the Frenchie backstory and the fact that it led to some form of healing between he and the female. In some ways, I'm relieved to see that Homelander has aligned himself with Stormfront, removing the tiny part of me that was rooting for him this season. Unless, that is, he's double-crossing her? We shall see. I'm hoping that Cindy and the female will team up in the next couple of episodes. Looking forward to listening to the podcast later today. Thanks again, Will B." Thanks, Will. That's really good thoughts there.
Yeah, thanks so much, Will. That's really nice of you. And I think, that would be awesome about Cindy and the female teaming up. And I kind of feel that they would really love to do that to get at Stormfront, by their powers combined. And that kind of feeling just makes me wonder whether it's Cindy exploding these heads, or whether maybe it's a secret soup that Edgar has got stashed away somewhere. But thanks for the feedback, Will.
Cheers, Will. Appreciate it. I'm right there with you with Don't Be So Close-Minded. It was one of the funniest bits.
Yeah,
excellent. Looking back on it now, I'm still like, yeah. So thank you so much. Over on Facebook, we got some feedback for episode 6 as well from Salim Ikisler, who said, Iceman is pyro. Yes, he is. What a fantastic episode. I have no idea how they're going to bring this to a conclusion in 2 more hours. I love the world building and getting Frenchie's backstory. His relationship with Cherie makes so much more sense now.
Yeah.
What an appearance by the love sausage. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to step on anything that Chris has for us on that subject. I had nothing. I'm so sorry, Salim.
Well, nothing for the comics, but that was definitely a big point from last week's episode.
Yes, it was a big point, just not from the comics. The good guy roster seems to be growing. There's even some grudging respect between Starlight and Butcher. I do think we will see the boys start shooting up V, if not this season, then early next. The 7, maybe 2, very soon. I am suspicious that Stormfront is playing Homelander. They are both sick in much very different ways. Maeve is playing with fire, no pun intended, but why didn't Elaine just use her own phone? The other thing I'm surprised by was Frenchie shooting that guard. I don't think A-Train will join the church, but I'm curious to see where that goes. Thank you so much, Salim. That did actually kind of make me go, why didn't Elena use phone? And then I'm like, oh yeah, there's takeaway apps that I have on mine because it counts on mine that just kind of like my wife will come up to me and go, wait, can you just order this? And I'm like, here, just take it.
Exactly.
It's easier.
They're very close. She can use her phone.
Yeah, thanks, Salim. And of course, Chris didn't manage to provide us with any love sausage for his corner last week. Or maybe he could have done, but it would have been a different comic.
Oh, God. Yeah, probably.
That's a very different comic. We also got some feedback from Trevor Green, who replied to Salim's message going, the way that Maeve and Elaine scene ended came across as a misdirect to me. Elena's reaction to the video could be interpreted as horrified, but for some other reason, it gave me the impression that Elena could be a plant by Vought to keep tabs on Maeve. Thank you, Trevor, and wow.
Well, we saw how it played out this episode. You're absolutely right, Trevor. That was a horrified look on Alina's face. She was kind of going, how do I play this now? I've seen the power of Maeve, and it's terrifying to me. I really love that conversation in this episode. You mentioned a bit of it earlier on, John, but I really love the reaction from her kind of going, I know how strong you are now, because if that was me, I wouldn't possibly be able to continue living my life doing the kinds of things that Homelander's making you do. Yeah. She says she wakes up screaming every night after seeing this video of the kid dying on the plane. So I don't think she was a plant of Vought. I think it was just, as you say, it played out that she was horrified by seeing the things that happened from Maeve. We kind of also see in this episode, Vought didn't want the relationship to end. Vought wanted both of them together to live the life as this number 2 lesbian couple in America. So
yes, who's number 1? Is it? It's supposed to be Ellen?
It's Ellen Portia Rossa. That's that. They had referenced that in a previous episode as well.
Oh, so, that was it. Yeah, it was Portia Rossa. Yes. Sorry, yes. The power couple.
Yeah, we also got some feedback from Bob Phillips. What an episode. Where are we going? Can Cindy make cinders of the 7? Nice. Will they, resplendent in ball gown and with mouse-turned footmen, crashing the annual shareholders meeting of Vought? Why is Frenchie called Serge? Were Cherie, Jay, and Serge a throuple? Did we know Starlight was a channel of energy rather than a generator before today? How can cauterizing the abdominal wall save someone from splenic rupture and probably massive mesenteric arterial lacerations?
Nice.
Now we've had anime-inspired tentacle sex and more head-popping pleasure. What niche are unexplored? Well, thank you, Bob, for that. And should I say Dr. Bob Phillips?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, probably cauterizing the wound wouldn't save poor old Huey much, but well,
TV magic.
TV magic, exactly. And I suppose he was still bleeding today, so it's not been all good for Huey.
Yeah. They did an operation when they got him to hospital. It was just to help him get to the hospital. Is what was happening there. But again, you're definitely right, Bob.
I would say so.
Wouldn't have helped too much.
I think as well. Yeah, what niches are going to be explored? I dread.
Don't go there. Don't ask the question.
No, exactly. I dread to think what niches are going to get explored.
Well, in fairness, they gave us like 6 or 7 in this episode because we had all the videos that Lamplighter was watching, which explored a multitude of other possible porn outlets,
niches,
for this show.
Crevices, you name it. It was explored.
We also saw Eagle the Archers.
We did. Yep.
So I'm just like, don't ask the question. They're gonna there's a lot of stuff out there that just don't. But thank you so much, Dr. Bob.
Absolutely. One of the things that was just on the after show, the official after show on Amazon Prime, they had the costume designer on after last week's episode, and she made reference to the fact that when Chase Crawford was getting his first costume fitting, he was wearing a pair of green underwear and put on the top of the costume and was about to walk out of the costume fitting, thinking that was what his entire costume was him in a pair of green underwear and this top. And this is what they used in the episode here, where they had the porn video of the Deep. They had that costume as the Deep's costume. So she referenced that it was going to be seen in an upcoming episode. So a nice little callback, a nice little behind the scenes reference.
Excellent
there.
stuff.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for that, Dr. Bob. Chris Aggie also shared his thoughts on episode 6. Bloody hell, what a ride. And more standout performance in one era than I saw in complete seasons of other shows. Cindy was great and creepy and terrifying, and obviously not stopped by a pissed off Stormfront electrocuting her, which makes her even more creepy and terrifying. But I loved that performance. I wanted her to explode even more people in future episodes, or even better, can we get a splatter one-shot movie with Cindy? And did anyone else expect some sort of blood splatter as she got in that car? Well, I kind of was expecting that the driver was going to be driving her somewhere, so maybe.
No, I kind of thought she was going to do something like that and she would drive away.
Yeah. Chris continues, I'm still completely weirded out by the Church the Collective plot. It's a slow burn, but I'm more and more interested where they're going with it. Homefront was icky as hell, but wow, was it fun to watch Ayakash and Tony Starr acting their butts off in those scenes. And Stormfront's backstory is even more Nazi than I would have expected. That Himmler was a good dancer quote was so on point for a diehard Nazi. I feel bad, but I felt for her personal parts with the death of her daughter and her line, everyone I love is in the ground. I love this show for how they can make even the most evil character three-dimensional and give her some humanity. It was much more fun to watch Starlight and Butcher and their relationship evolving with their love, friendship, respect for Huey as their common ground. Oh, and the Frenchie. Do we need to call him Surge now? And Lamplighter arc? Wow, that hurt. So much trauma for everybody. Excellent feedback, Chris.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chris. That was really, really good. And you're right. I think, the three-dimensional characters in the show are just so good. I mean, even with the reverse that we saw with Starlight really not having much empathy at all when she has killed the man on the ground. She just thought he was stupid for pulling a gun. Yeah. And, it's really great stuff from the show.
Absolutely. Like, we talked about this before a little bit with Umbrella Academy, the idea of a monthly comic coming out, it's only about 20 pages long, and the character development that actually goes on in comic books, rather than, a graphic novel where it's, you pick up a proper novel that's got images in it and it can take you on a full story. With comic books, it tends to be, you come back every month, you pick up your comic book and you read your story of the character, and they're kind of the same as they were last month and the year before and maybe 30 years before that. Whereas a TV show like this is able to develop the characters a lot more. Like The Boys as a comic book is great, but kind of you pick up issue 60 and it's kind of the same Billy Butcher as was in issue 20. You know, it's not a massive progression of this character and development that's in there. Definitely with Umbrella Academy, we saw that the only character development that some of the characters get in Umbrella Academy was in the TV show. There's hardly any at all in all of the comic books. So I do think they've used this to the best benefit. Having a writer like Eric Kripke on board, who, you know, spearheaded a show that ran for 15 series. He's very good at developing characters and creating three-dimensional characters. So great stuff. Excellent feedback, Chris.
Yes, thank you so much, Chris. Essentially, it comes I will call out Invincible and Saga as two that book that trend.
Absolutely.
Which show huge character growth. Now, again, not all comic books like Iron Man, but again, that took nearly 60, 70 years for his character to evolve.
And a final piece of feedback just snuck in while I was editing from Jimmy Uren over to feedback at tvpodcastindustries.com. Jimmy says, I really like how the writers have managed to balance the storylines of so many different characters this season. Last week was MM's episode, but this was finally Frenchie getting his turn with some backstory, which was great as I really didn't know much about him. I'm also increasingly impressed with Karen Fukuhara's acting. As for a mute character, she has to do so much with her body language and facial expressions, which works really well here, as well as the choice of jewellery. At first I wrongly thought it might be a language thing, but watching some interviews with her on Prime, she is actually really chatty, so it must be hard for her to be so restrained, and probably explains why she takes it all out on the guards. Unfortunately, I was not quite as sold on Lamplighter. I just could not tell if he was just very remorseful or duplicitous. But for someone who had been built up as something of a big bad, he felt a little underwhelming. Given the similarities, down to the Zippo lighter, I would have preferred them to actually get Aaron Stamford in to effectively reprise his role as Pyro and be a full-on bad guy. Yes, having an Asylum episode is a bit of a trope, and this felt part Arkham and part New Mutants, to the extent that I half expected Hugh Jackman to have a cameo. But of course, being The Boys, it was done really well, and this was another great week of TV. I just wish there were more than 2 episodes left now, but great to hear we'll be getting a season 3. P.S. I genuinely had to look up Love Sausage as a character to make sure you guys weren't having me on. Thanks so much, Jimmy. We'd never lie to you. What are you talking about? Yeah, it's a really good feedback there. Karen Fukuhara is so good, and I really love seeing her on the behind the scenes interviews. She's such a lovely person and really chatty. It must be so difficult for her. I know exactly what you mean. As for Lamplighter, I loved how they weaved the storyline into the show, to be honest, of what actually happened and how remorseful he does feel. Obviously, we see from this episode a very different end to Lamplighter, but that would actually be quite interesting casting if they got Aaron Stamford in to reprise his role from the X-Men movies as Pyro. That's a really fun bit of casting that they could have done. I kind of like the fire and ice thing though with Sean Ashmore though. Very cool. Thanks, Jimmy. Back to the end of the podcast.
So before we finish up our feedback, we have one final voicemail from the one and only Steve Brown.
Is Carl Urban's accent getting thicker? Like, he's getting harder to understand, even with subtitles on. Hello, TD Podcast Industries. This is Steve. This is for the latest episode of The Boys, Season 2, Episode 6, The Bloody Doors Off. Wow. Gosh. I can't make the statement that this season is better than last season, but man, it's really good. And we're getting some really good stuff. Let me see if I can break it down in order, because there was so much intermingled here. It's going to be hard to separate some of them, but I will give one of probably my boys' moment is going to be Carl Urban and Billy Butcher and Starlight kind of bonding there, standing over Huey in his hospital bed. That was so cute to see the two of them and talking about him, and just you can see the mutual love they really do have for him, for the character. And I really enjoyed that scene a lot. The action was really good. The reveal that Sean Ashmore is Lamplighter was wow. But my 7 moment, let's see, it has to be that moment when, and I will pick one out from a different point, but when Stormfront is in the room with Lamplighter and the guy that Lamplighter ends up killing, she says, she's talking about the subjects, and I really started to get that inkling that, oh, she's part of this experiment. And so then, of course, that reveal at the end that she was involved in everything. So the big moment. But wow, just so much in this episode. That cold open with Homelander and Stormfront just so creepy, and then him, seeing his temper, and I don't know if her truth revealing is going to help. Truth revealing. I just realized I said that. Okay, I'm almost 2 minutes, so talk to you later.
I think after every episode of The Boys, this gap of a week before the next episode comes up is necessary just to piece what happens together. Because you're right, Steve, so much goes on in each episode. Thanks so much for the feedback.
Yeah, thanks, Steve, for the feedback. A lot went on in last week's episode. And I was saying, is Stormfront playing Homelander? Is Homelander, as I say, before he goes in for the kiss, is it going to be a little quick jerk to the left with the neck of Stormfront? It's really difficult to know sometimes, and I think it's one of those shows that really puts me on edge week in, week out, because I'm expecting some form of laser death, or like this week with exploding heads, something happening unexpectedly.
Absolutely.
Definitely unexpectedly. Thank you so much, Steve.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Steve. Thanks to everybody for your feedback. If you want to send us some feedback, once again, you can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. You can pop over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. Leave your thoughts on our spoiler post that we put up for each episode of the show. John, I think it's time to pop on over quickly to the pub for our weekly pub quiz question.
Most definitely join us for a pint of mild, as Billy Butcher had in this week's episode. It is
6, yeah.
Or 6, yeah. It is The Boys pub quiz. So, question 7. What cell is Starlight being held in Vought Tower?
Interesting.
Yes. What cell is Starlight being held in Vought Tower? Please send your answer through our email at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. And of course, you'll be in with a chance to win some The Boys goodies, which will include a collected first volume of The Boys, amongst a few other things. And hopefully there will be a nice pint glass now for Billy Butcher's Pint of Mild on Amazon, on the Boys site there on Amazon. Who knows it?
It would be great, wouldn't it? But, again, they've set up this site for the release of the TV show, and apparently it seems like all of the new stuff for season 2 is only being released in like March or April next year. So we're not going to make you wait that long. We will have the winner of our pub quiz in our wrap-up episode for The Boys season 2, which should be coming out towards the end of October. So we'll have hopefully a ton of you answering all of our pub quiz questions. If you want to catch up on any of the pub quiz questions, if you missed any of them, pop over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. I put the questions in for each of the episodes in there.
Yes, or you can head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can download each and every episode of our podcast, and you can listen to them. And then at the end, you will hear our pub quiz. You can also go on over to any good or evil Vought or Boys affiliated podcast catcher, Podbean, the usual places, etc. Podchaser, Podcast Addict, you name it, we are there. We're also on Amazon Podcasts as of last week. Thank you so much to our intrepid, amazing producer Darick for getting us through all the hoops to get us on there. So pretty much wherever you want to listen to us, we are now available. Of course, anything you can do to help support our small little podcast is always greatly appreciated. You can support us by sharing the podcast, because sharing the podcast is sharing the love. Don't forget, you can also write a review, because a good old 5-star review does great wonders for promoting us and getting us up there.
We also love hearing them too.
Yes, it's also nice to see. Or you can also just head on over to patreon.com/tvpodcastindustries, where for a single $1, because doing that, it helps us keep the lights on, keeps the engine running and the hamster in the wheel that powers our microphones.
He keeps calling me a hamster. Every single week Chris calls me the hamster
Kripke.
that powers our microphones. I'm just an editor, an occasional producer, and sometime co-host
Well,
of the
you
podcast.
do store your food in your cheeks.
I do, but that's only something you know, John. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. We'll be back with the final episode of The Boys Season 2, Episode 8, What I Know, next week. Not What I Know next week. What I Know is the name of the episode. We will release the Boys episode next week. We are also covering Lovecraft Country, the weirdest, craziest, most horrific show on television at the moment. It is fantastic. If you didn't see this week's episode 7 of Lovecraft Country, you have to watch it all the way through to the end. It's a magnificent episode of TV. At least we thought so.
Yeah, a magnificent psychedelic trip through other worlds.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
the multiverse is alive in Lovecraft Country.
Got to be that way for you, John. Thanks so much for joining us. Talk to you again next time.
Yes, thank you so much. And I would just like to use this last 30 seconds to call out the amazing news that the one, the only Samuel L. Jackson, one and only Nick Fury, is getting his own show on Disney Plus. And I will officially put it here. We kind of said it on our Facebook group. Of course, we have the number one Nick Fury fan in the room. Well, not in this room because we're on different rooms. But yes, Darick is the number one fan. So of course, we will be covering that show whenever it airs. And do you know what? You're not going to get a Chris's corner. You're not going to get a John's corner. You're going to get a Darick's corner.
Absolutely. I'll be breaking open my Shield files for that one. Can't wait to see what they do with Samuel L. Jackson. They've been talking about a Samuel L. Jackson-led movie for Nick Fury right back to his first appearance in Iron Man 1. Before any of the other movies were announced, there was actually an IMDb thing. And I know IMDb's like Wikipedia. Anybody can write it. But there were updates going up all the time. There was going to be a Shield-led or a Nick Fury-led Shield movie right back then. And then eventually we had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for 7 seasons, the wonderful Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And now we're going to be getting a Samuel L. Jackson-led Nick Fury show. Last week was a good week for me when I found that news out.
Cool.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yes. Congratulations, Darick. And thank you so much, fellow listeners. And we'll speak to you again soon. Bye.
Yeah, thanks so much, fellow boys and girls, for joining us. It is great having you on board the podcast, and it's great to discuss these things with you. Remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep burning brightly. Bye.
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 Keep burning brightly.